Hi, my name is Sarah Trimble. I'm the founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective, the first anonymous crowdsourced hiring reputation system. I think Yelp in a world of professionally mandated fine dining with no health department and no FDA. So what I'm doing right now and reading some of my blogs from Substack is slightly improving from what I've done before. Instead of just doing TikTok, little short clips on YouTube, I'm going to make something a little bit longer with a little bit better quality. It's not the greatest, but it's a step forward. And when you're running a paradigm shift of a $100 billion global market, there's a lot to do. So you do your stuff in stages. Yeah, improve in stages, get those words out, because this kind of paradigm shift takes time to integrate regardless in your brain and your soul. And I'm okay with doing this in stages. So yeah, buckle up. This particular blog post is called The $1 Billion Lie, How Talent Shortages Became the Perfect Cover for Labor Market Failure. Why platforms profit more when you stay unemployed and how the shortage narrative hides it. What's an economic synonym for talent shortage in online hiring? Rent seeking. While not all inefficiency is intentional, the online talent industry is structurally incentivized to maximize employer spending, and it is not structurally incentivized to improve the job seeker's user experience. Intent and impact are not the same thing, but if job seekers are required to live in a house that never gets repaired or cleaned because there's no negative outcome for not doing that, why would the landlord invest in maintenance? The phrase talent shortage gets repeated endlessly in headlines, boardrooms, and congressional hearings. But here's what the data shows. The U.S. hiring rate has barely moved, stuck between 3.5% and 4% for over a decade, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and JOLTS. LinkedIn's revenue skyrocketed from $240 million in 2010 to $16 billion by 2024. These are according to their fiscal year reports. Indeed's revenue jumped from $777 million in 2015 to $5.7 billion in 2021. This is from Recruit Holdings. In their fiscal year reports, Recruit's fiscal year 2024 filings report had $5.88 billion US dollars in a single quarter. And yet, the lived experience of U.S. job seekers has been steadily decaying since the labor market went online. The Lost Generation study in the Journal of Human Resources found steadily decreasing outcomes over the last 20 years in the online labor market. Harvard's Hidden Workers tracks 27.4 million long-term unemployed in the U.S. alone, and Jacobson Kula at Business Insider does several in-depth narrative looks at job seekers' lived experience unemployed for years in the labor market. Meanwhile, platforms are hitting record profits while millions of career-seeking Americans remain stuck in long-term unemployment. Who this is for? This is for job seekers who've been told to work harder while all the doors stay locked. The people navigating endless applications, silent ATS funnels, and years of instability just to access basic security. It's for employers frustrated by rising costs, declining response rate, and talent shortages that never end. It's for policymakers, economists, and journalists trying to reconcile a paradox: record HR tech problems, profits, and flat hiring rates. It's for researchers and labor advocates who want to see the real dynamic driving today's dysfunction, where the market sells access while obscuring how the game is rigged. And it's for anyone starting to recognize this deeper truth. When the job market moved online, it dropped all trust mechanisms for over half the market and well over 95% of users, and never replaced them. A talent industry that builds hiring solutions, not hope casinos, requires a two-sided market to have quite overtly two sides. And until we confront the misalignment, the system will not change. The inversion nobody talked about. If there were truly a historic shortage of skilled workers, the talent industry would behave differently. Platforms like LinkedIn and Indeed and HS vendors would be obsessed with understanding job seekers, measuring friction points, improving usability, and redesigning workflows so candidates actually want to engage. That is not happening. Employers are spending billions, and HR tech companies are openly not investing in job seeker experience, insight, or trust. Take Disney as an analogy. Imagine parents spending thousands to take their kids to Disney World. But when the kid arrives, the rides are broken, the bathrooms are filthy, the food is overpriced and bad, and Disney never asks families what went wrong. Would you believe Disney was truly optimizing for the guest experience? Do you think that when old Western movies built stages, they built entire houses? Or the facade of houses? Why? When you look at a cylinder, can you tell whether you're looking at a kaleidoscope or a telescope? Or do you have to look through it for that? That's the talent industry today. Employers are the parents spending billions. Job seekers are the kids waiting in line for broken rides. HR tech platforms are the park owners collecting money without fixing the system. And here's the kicker. We trust HR tech to describe the candidate experience. But why? Do you ask Disney or your kids what their experience of the ride was? And when you realize the labor market isn't actually an American Idol style competition where job seekers perform in hopes of impressing employers, the inversion becomes obvious. It's not all that much of a stretch to think of the labor market as the stock market for the U.S. labor force. Only this one, the SEC would shut down in a heartbeat. Job seekers aren't moving to the labor market to prove worthiness. They're moving as economic actors trying to get access to financial safety, food, housing, and healthcare, and socioeconomic mobility, a better future, retirement. If you start thinking about the U.S. job seekers like market participants acting in their own interest, not contestants seeking approval, you see the failure more clearly. Employers spend billions, platforms profit wildly, and the very actors whose unpaid movements power the system remain invisible by design. Employers spending to acquire scarce talent isn't proof of a shortage. The invisibility of job seekers is the point. The spending is the business model, the narrative that sells itself. The talent shortage narrative survives because it serves almost everyone except job seekers. Platforms like LinkedIn and Indeed offer premium placement and visibility roles to employers eager to fill roles. Indeed, for example, lets companies sponsor job ads with a daily budget, paying for clicks to keep listings prominent. Indeed, recruiters upsell sourcing services when employers panic. Vendors monetize assessments, resume filters, and AI scoring, fixing a problem they quietly exacerbate. It's a perfect economic feedback loop. Scarcity narrative drives panic. Panic drives employer spend. Spend drives platform profits. Platform profits removes any incentive to actually solve the problem. Think of it a bit like De Beers, except the diamonds that are hidden are the U.S. labor force with a very clever narrative. The cost of designing without job seekers. By treating job seekers as data points instead of users, HR tech platforms actively create the inefficiency in the labor market that affects both job seekers and employers. It becomes a level of planned obsolescence, but for human markets that control civic stability and human survival. This is profoundly dangerous. Ghost jobs. Nearly 1 in 3 employers admit to posting job listings with no intent to hire, indicating many active listings are effectively ghosts. And I have a link for that. Signal collapse. Without clarity on which roles are real or active, candidates over-apply, employers drown in noise, and platforms profit from churn rather than resolution. An engagement trap for one side is an engagement trap for the other. It's a magic claw machine. Whether job seekers whether there's a talent shortage or resume spam, either way, employers are over-engaging. Why national job boards tilt the market against Main Street describe the impact of this behavior recursively on small businesses too, and thus back on job seekers and more. This is a market where trust collapses because the people powering the system are invisible in its design, despite the fact that their unpaid labor is the inventory that creates its profit. The platform's goal isn't to solve the problem of unemployment or talent acquisition. Its goal is to sell the feeling of control to the paying customer, the employer, while monetizing the unpaid labor and desperation of the unpaying customer, the job seeker. It feels like gaslighting. Job seekers are told companies are desperate for talent, yet resumes vanish into ATS funnels. 88% of employers acknowledge the ATS automatically screen out qualified high-skills applicants because their resumes aren't ATS friendly. From a human resource magazine. Instant rejections come from opaque keyword filters. Over 99.7% of recruiters use keyword filters in their ATS, filtering by skills, education, titles, certifications, and experience. And I put a job scan numbers there. Job seekers are asked to complete unpaid assessments while employers get no transparency in return. Both Forbes and Axios have spoken to this assessment piece activity issue. This isn't just incompetence, it's design. The illusion of scarcity props up platform profits, recruiter upsells, and vendor services while obscuring the structural dysfunction of a system the U.S. labor force cannot opt out of. when the entire market is the gateway to food, housing, and healthcare. Broken design isn't just inefficient, it's destabilizing. At this point, it starts to look less like rent-seeking and more like ransom-seeking. The way out. If you're tired of being treated like invisible inventory, you're not imagining it. That's why we built the job applicant perspective, the first review-driven hiring platform where job seekers can flag those jobs, review recruiting processes honestly, track fraud and scam. Because until applicants have collective leverage, the narrative will not change because transparency shifts power, because scarcity isn't always real, but your labor is. Join the T-Job and take back the market. Takeaway, numbers don't lie. Hiring hasn't improved. Employer spending keeps climbing. Job seekers remain invisible. If there were a talent shortage, HR tech companies would be designing systems around job seeker insights and usability and trust. They are not. This isn't a shortage. It's a business model. It's very clearly a business model. Check out the research. Check out more research on these topics. Check out Bonhoeffer's principle, one I mentioned before, structural fallacy. I did one on game theory and structural fallacy, game theoretic failures and systemic incoherence. Note these are all those things I have are preprints, working papers, academic cited and sourced, but still in progress. And yeah, that's my thing. So I hope this helps. Again, I'm here for you, job seekers. You're my people. But in reality, the online labor market needs a Yelp of hiring. It needs a Google Maps of the job market. That's exactly what it needs. Two-sided trust. Profit is in the pain until the profit is in the solution. So, yeah. Stop by the job applicant perspective, and thank you very much.